Today, we are counting down the 10 most valuable key issues of the year 1977, published by Marvel Comics. We're only going to look at regular mass-produced editions. On this episode, we will be covering all the rare 35-cent cover price variants in a separate episode. Otherwise, they would dominate this list. So looking at regular cover price books, number 10 of the year is X-Men number 107. It is the first full appearance of the Starjammers. This issue also features many of the main gang, including Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Banshee, and Cyclops. Dave Cockrum cover art. Now, as I mentioned, there is a 35-cent variant of this book, but we're just going to talk about the regular cover today. You can see there's a big difference, though, in the number of copies graded by CBSI. The regular cover with 30-cent cover price has 1,215 copies graded by the CBSI. There are 214 9.6s or better. Heritage has now sold 157 copies in the last 20 years. In the Overstreet annual price guide, we can look at the growth year by year in all conditions. We can see the book has almost tripled in the last decade for the variant, but let's focus on the regular cover. It's been holding still. This is a key book that everyone hunts for, but it's fairly common. Prices in Overstreet have not really been moving. So in the last year, you'll see pretty well all grades have stalled. So if you really want to see what's happening in the market, check out current eBay sales prices and definitely look at the GP Analysis website to see how the graded copies are doing. And of course, 9.8s will be breaking records all the time. On the census in general, there are 43 9.8s and 171 9.6s. X-Men are the most highly collected series of 1977. You'll see that they have a lot of issues on the list, including number 9 of the year, which you'll see also ranks as the 249th most valuable comic from Marvel of the 1970s. And this issue features the old X-Men versus the new X-Men. This book also has a 35-cent price variant. This issue features Firelord and Misty Knight. Dave Cockrum cover art again. And on the census, again, 1,100 of the regular cover, 315 of the 9.6s. So that's higher than the other issue we just looked at. Again, in Overstreet, regular cover prices are stalled. And on the census in general, there are 85 9.8s and 230 9.6s. The number 8 comic of the year is X-Men 105. And if they would have relaunched with new numbering, this would have been issue number 12. Let's learn a little bit more about this book. It also has a 35-cent price variant. So you can see the difference. The regular cover is 30 cents. This is a pretty good action cover. And this issue also features Firelord, Lilandra, Misty Knight, and Eric the Red. And even Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum have cameo appearances in the actual story. On the census, again, we've got over 1,300 copies graded in total. There are 365 9.6s or better. Again, Overstreet stalled in all grades for the regular cover. Lots of movement for the 35-cent price variant. And on the census, 106 9.8s and 259 9.6s. The number 7 comic of the year is X-Men number 108. And this is where John Byrne takes over the title and starts featuring his classic artwork. This issue does not have a 35-cent price variant. There is only a regular cover because comics have now officially moved to the 35-cent cover price at this time in 1977. This is dated December 1977. It's the second appearance of the Starjammers. Print run estimated at 111,000 copies were printed. And what else can we tell you? So CDC, again, pretty steady with how many copies are graded. There's 1,200 in total, 214 9.6 or better. Again, Overstreet not moving, but the high grade copies, $135 raw for a 9.2. And on the census, 144 9.8s, 281 9.6s, and there is 40 copies of the UK price variant have been graded, including 2 9.8s. Well, now we get past the X-Men books that are high on the list. Number 6 of the year is Marvel Spotlight 32, major key book featuring the first appearance of Spider-Woman. She would debut here and then later get her own ongoing series. So let's look at some more details on this book. It's the first appearance and the origin of Jessica Drew. Nick Fury also appears in this issue. Print run estimated 150,000 copies. The census has gone crazy just in the last 4 years. There's almost 2,000 more copies graded, including 756 9.6s or better. This one still has a 30-cent cover price. Overstreet, it is moving in all grades. In fact, in the last decade, it's almost tripled in low grade, and it's gone up 5.5 times in high grade raw. On the census, 199.8 cents, 566 9.6 copies of this book. Number 5 for the year, Black Panther #1. He was originally created in 1966, but he finally gets his own ongoing self-titled issue, and it features Jack Kirby artwork. And of course, this book has been a big book for the last few years, ever since Black Panther started showing up in the Marvel movies. Let's look at a little more details on this book. Black Panther's first solo title. Number 5 of the year for most valuable book. 3,992 copies graded in total. 892 9.6s. Heritage has sold quite a few. Classic Jack Kirby cover. You know it's his artwork for sure. Overstreet, just for the last couple of years, has stalled in all grades. But again, watch the census for the graded copies. They'll be breaking records. And on the census in total, there are 225 9.8s, including 15 signature series 9.8s. And there's also a UK price variant. And there are 2 9.6s of that book out there. Number 4 comic of the year, Miss Marvel #1. And this features the first appearance of Miss Marvel. This was an ongoing series. It features the first appearance of Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel. Also features the Scorpion, J. Jonah Jameson, and Mary Jane Watson. There's even a Peter Parker cameo. John Romita Sr. cover art. On the census, there are 5,700 copies graded, including 991 9.6s or better. Heritage has sold over 200 copies. 30-cent cover price. Overstreet again stalled in all grades, but it's made hefty jumps in the last decade for sure. And on the census, we have 296 9.8s. There are 89 copies graded of the UK price variant, including 2 9.6s. Well, some people probably feel that this should be the #1 book of the year, but we're basing this on the Overstreet price guide. So number 3 comic of 1977 is Star Wars #1. First appearance of the Star Wars universe in Marvel Comics in a new ongoing series. And of course, we know that it took the world by storm. There are actually 6 versions of Star Wars #1. So you really got to watch out and learn your history a little bit. So in the picture here alone, you can see here's the original first printing, 30-cent cover price. It has a barcode in the bottom. There are copies that don't have a barcode. They're blank. Those are, in most cases, still a first print. But you'll want to watch for ones that say 35 cents. And yes, there is a 35-cent price variant. But keep in mind, there are also 35-cent price reprints. And those are quite common. And here's another type of reprint. This #1 at first glance looks to be exactly the same, but it has the word reprint printed right along the side of Luke Skywalker. So now what we don't have is official print runs for all 6 versions of this book. But it seems logical to me that as common as the first printing of #1 is, it seems likely that the reprints would be even more common because they would have come out later to cash in because the movie was now the biggest movie in the world. Okay, so this book is important for many reasons. It's the first appearance in comics of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Princess Leia, C-3PO, R2-D2, and the first cover appearance ever of Han Solo and Chewbacca. Features Howard Chaykin cover and art. Print run estimated at 200,000 copies for this specific #1 printing. It does seem to be fairly common because you'll see on the census, it's crazy. There are almost 10,000 copies graded by CTC in all conditions, including 2,500 9.6s or better. That is a crazy high number for a book that's this old. And even Heritage has sold 625 copies. We've never seen these kind of numbers for books that are this old. Overstreet price guide is very conservative, not much movement at all in all the raw grades. In the last decade, it has doubled in high grade. But again, you know, on the CGC census with the graded 9.8s, etc., record prices being set all the time. What's also interesting about this book is there are other foreign editions of #1 that have also been graded by CBC because it's such a historic book. We have a French one, we have Alamar's bookstore edition, we have a South African edition, all original from 1977. The regular cover, though, 654 9.8s and almost 1,900 9.6s. Lots of buzz for this book, and it's going to continue. The #2 most valuable regular produced Marvel comic of 1977 is Marvel Comics Super Special #1. This is actually a large, oversized magazine format. Why is this book so important? It is Kiss on the cover. And there was a lot of hype for this. Kiss was one of the biggest bands in the world at the time in 1977. And it's believed that they used some of their own blood that was thrown into the ink to print this book. So lots of hype for this one. Lots of Kiss collectors out there. A lot of comic book collectors. So you have two different markets who want this book. And this book also does feature Spider-Man, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Doctor Doom. Covered by Alan Weiss and Gray Morrow. Print run estimated at 300,000 copies. 696 overall on the CTC census, including 126 and 9.6s or better. Heritage has only sold 58 of these. Overstreet, again, not too much movement. Low grade's not really moving. High grade, though, it's not even doubled in the last decade. But again, CTC high grade copies will be breaking records. There's lots of them out there. And on the census, we can see there are 42 9.8s and 84 9.6s. And the Kiss would also return and also be featured in #5 of this magazine series. So that one's highly collected as well. But that would come out in 1978. So we'll see that in a different episode. And the #1 most valuable regular produced comic for Marvel of the year, Iron Fist #14. This has been a major key for decades now. It's the first appearance of Sabretooth and features John Byrne art. This book does have a 35-cent price variant, but here is the regular 30-cent cover, action cover with Iron Fist. Almost 5,000 copies graded by CTC, 658, 9.6 or better. Heritage sales have really been picking up. Overstreet price guide, not a lot of movement. In low grade, it's not even doubled. High grade, it's gone up about 3 times. And on the census, we have 181 9.8s, 477 9.6s. Compare that to the 35-cent price variant. You can see why the variants are worth so much. So we are going to be featuring them in next week's episode. Check that out. The most valuable 35-cent price variants for Marvel in 1977. So there you go. That's the 10 most valuable Marvel comics of the year. But let's look at it a different way. Let's look at the CDC census for the 10 books and compare them. So which books have the most copies graded? Well, by far, Star Wars #1 with almost 10,000 copies. Next to that, it's Miss Marvel #1 with 5,700 copies. The book that has the least copies graded is Marvel Comics Super Special with Kiss. Only 696 copies of that. Is it because it's a magazine size format? Perhaps. The average grade, you'll see there's a lot of copies of all these books, but generally speaking, about 8.5 is the average for all of them. On the census, which book has the most 9.8? Well, it's Star Wars #1. And of course, it has the most 9.6s, the most 9.4s. So it's in the lead for sure. Again, the Kiss magazine has the lowest amount of 9.8s at only 42. But note that XMen 107 also only has 43 9.8s. So that's surprisingly quite a low number for such a key issue of the first full appearance of the Star Jammers. So there you go. There's all the stats there. So remember, we're looking at a year every week. Next week, a special 1977 price variant edition, top 10. And we have some major books on this list, including the most valuable Marvel comic of the 1970s. I'd like to thank you for watching. Check out my other reports at terryhoknes.com. Subscribe to my channel. I have hundreds of videos relating to comic book collecting, investing, and history. And also check out CBSI at comicbookinvest.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.